view of people here in the UK. Well, just a little earlier, I spoke to Major Neill Franklin, a former commander with Baltimore and Maryland State Police Departments, who's now Executive Director of LEAP, a group of law enforcement officials advocating reform for relations between the police and community. He explained how the protests for police excess against black people are different this time.
I'm from Baltimore. Freddie Gray, the death of Freddie Gray back in 2015. I was on the scene of the beginning of that protest that started in Baltimore that spread to other cities across the country regarding the death of Freddie Gray. This is very different as it spreads across the country, beginning in Minneapolis. And for a number of reasons, I heard Michelle talk about, you know, the issues of COVID-19. Let me just touch on a couple of things real quick. We have to understand that this continues to happen, the death of black men in this country at the hands of the police and black women at the hands of the police. It continues to happen. As cities come online and have come online with their protests, it's because they also have their own individual George Floyd. Some have more than others. And so they are in solidarity. These protests are linked. People are feeling the emotions of what occurred in Minneapolis. If they're in Atlanta, if they're in Los Angeles, if they're in Baltimore, they understand it, they get it. So in solidarity, they are joining those folks in Minneapolis in protest, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
I think we are now seeing an opportunity for people who have other issues with the government coming out and expressing their feelings and concerns and disgruntledness. And we're dealing with this at a time of COVID-19 where people have been home for weeks and they're not working. They're not in school, so the opportunity
let me ask
is
you.
there.
Let me ask you another question, because you've talked about this same issue going back years. Why have reforms that have been called for in those years, why have they failed?
Well, they fail because they have not generally had the backing of law enforcement. Law enforcement in this country is very political. They carry a lot of power and weight in either convincing our elected officials to put forth policy, to pass policy, or not to pass policy. That's a large part of why the reforms have not been enacted. And this is going to take more than reforms, Matthew. It's going to take a new policing paradigm in this country, because this current model does not work. It never was designed for people of color in this country.
And is that every level? Because when you look at investigators or prosecutors or juries, they're always reluctant to almost second guess those split-second decisions that officers are making. Does that tilt the scales against minority communities, do you think?
No, it does. But because of the advent of video, now everybody has the opportunity, has the capability within their own hands with a cell phone to record police encounters. That's one of the major reasons we're seeing this change today. If George Floyd or Laquan McDonald, who was killed in Chicago a few years back, if those had not been caught on video, believe me, we wouldn't be here today.
The latest there from the United States. Let's return here to the UK Parliament and